You're listening to the Fitzy and Wippa podcast.
Jeez, it was hot on the couch, on the MAFS couch last night, the commitment ceremony. Dan and Sandy, everyone's been talking about this relationship, and it was time for Dan to make a decision. Did he want to stay or did he want to leave? This is what happened.
So I think the best thing for me to do is leave. The beach and the ocean is calling me and I have to go home.
The beach and the ocean is calling Dan.
Half man, half dolphin.
Well, one lady that had to put up with Dan for 6 weeks is Sandy, and she joins us now. Welcome, Sandy.
Hey guys, good morning.
Sandy, first things first, I think you're beautiful and I think you did a great job on the show.
Oh, thank you.
How is your relationship with your family?
Good. Since I came back, my parents loved me at the end of the day and they saw I wasn't in a good place. So, things are good now. They don't know what's happened though, but otherwise everything's good.
Sandy, I'm going to get real serious here, and this is what really disappointed me. After what you went through for 6 weeks with that guy, I looked at the experts and I went, well, hang on, wait. You were the ones that paired Sandy up with this guy. You come from a conservative background with your culture as well. Your parents didn't want to be involved, and they hook you up with a womanizer who's been married twice from the Gold Coast. Now, Mel Schilling, one of the experts, then said this to you at the end of it.
And we can appreciate the position you're in, within your family, your community, and I guess how much is at stake for you coming into this process, and the three of us are so disappointed for you.
Do you know, I don't know if I can believe any of that, Sandy, because
What do you think?
You were obviously not paired up with the right person.
I mean, in saying that though, when I first met Dan showed me a very different side of Dan. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they thought.
I agree.
Like when you meet Dan, you don't know... when you meet him, you're not going to think he's a womanizer and this and that. So I guess that's what he presented to them as well.
Because he's an actor. You know what's interesting, Sandy? To think now, after everything that's happened, do you feel like you could have predicted what's happened, that he's now in a relationship with the girl that had the big breasts at the wedding?
No, look, I didn't see that coming. The more I got to know Dan, and now what I know of Dan, well, yeah. But, yeah, back then, no.
Because it was offensive how it was made out on the show that basically in 100 different ways he was trying to say to you, you're lazy and you're a slob.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's really disappointing. Hey, look, Sandy, we're going to be honest with you. We just got in contact with Dan. And for everyone listening, we're going to play it next. We got him... You wouldn't believe it, Sandy, he just got back from the beach. But we asked him some hard-hitting questions, and you're going to hear it all next. But we did ask him if he regretted going on the show, Sandy, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, hey, listen, I think given the matching that Sandy and I were, it wasn't the best use
of our time. It's not fair, Dan, is it? It's not fair.
He regretted going on the show. Do you regret going on the show, Sandy?
No, I don't, because I was authentic to myself. I think Dan regrets it because he didn't get to portray himself in the way he was hoping.
Yeah, he's been exposed.
He's been exposed, yeah, the mask came off. And at the end of the day, if you go there for the right reasons, you shouldn't have any regrets. You learn something, right? And I've learned something from experience, how to sniff out someone like Dan a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm not surprised that he regrets it.
Sandy, have you found love since?
No, not yet.
No, not yet. How has the attention been? How have you found it, Sandy, being on the show and just people recognising you in the streets? How have you found that?
It's different. I mean, everyone's been really nice. The response has been great. And, I love, like, when someone will be like, oh, I could really relate to this and that, or, your story. And that feels good because that was, part of it is trying to change things a little bit, especially within my community and culture, and just making decisions for yourself, putting yourself out there.
He wanted to leave you a message, Sandy. Do you want to hear this message from Dan?
Sure.
Okay, this is what he had to say.
Sandy, I'm really sorry at the way that I showed up at times inside the experiment. I showed up in ways that were out of character for me, in ways that I'm very disappointed in. We went through quite a journey. We had some amazing times, and they're times that I'll treasure forever. I wish you all the best. There's a guy out there that is much, much better suited to you than what I will ever be. you're going to love that person. That person's going to love you back. And unfortunately, it just wasn't me.
Is that hard to listen to, Sandy?
Yeah, what he's saying at the end is great. It's true. I do deserve someone that loves me and that I love back. It was never. I don't think the issue was that we were mismatched, because it doesn't work. Like, if you're there for the wrong reasons, of course we're mismatched. But it's not even about that anymore. It's more, the way he showed up, the way he started to treat me, all that sort of stuff. It doesn't take away from that. So,
Sandy, what about that moment where he said, "I see you, I hear you, I feel you"? I reckon.
I've heard a lot of those quotes from Dan.
I reckon Dan's done a couple of self-help courses and a few business courses.
Just quickly, and we need to ask him as well. Sandy, I need to ask you this. He's currently seeing a woman that was at your wedding. Mm-hmm. So did you ask him questions about... Did you know who she was?
There was a lot of girls at the wedding. A few of them he had told me about. They were all friends of his.
Yep.
To be honest, I didn't really remember Sam much. But I think back now, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. I thought everyone was really friendly and nice. Watching the wedding, I didn't realise half the comments that were being said. But yeah, look, the more I'm knowing about Dan, it's not surprising.
Yeah, okay. Well,
All right, thanks, Sandy.
Sandy, you handled yourself so well. So we appreciate your time. I know it's hard for you, but thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
No
Have a good
worries.
day.
Thanks, Sandy.
And that chat that we had with Dan, we caught him a bit off guard, but you need to hear this.
Well, we weren't meant to have his phone number, were we?
Because you know what? He is in a relationship at the moment with a guest that was at his wedding.
Yeah.
We needed to ask him about that. We're going to play that chat that we had with Dan for you next. Before we go, we just spoke to Sandy from MAFS, but we have come across Dan's number. Now, Dan's not doing any interviews.
How'd you get it, Tom?
I can't say.
Well, no, Tom used to hang out with Dan quite a bit back in the day.
You guys used to do beach runs and...
so much ocean time.
Well, you did a lot of 6-hour runs.
Just
like all day.
A lot of dune work.
Down at the outdoor gym.
Let's see if he'll pick up. Do you reckon he'll be back from the beach? Let's give him a call.
Hello.
Dan, it's Fitzy and Wippa from Nova, mate. How are you, son?
Oh, good.
Oh, Dan.
Ooh, what a roller coaster,
You're not
Dan.
down the beach, are you?
I actually just got back.
Oh, you've kicked off Monday early again, mate.
Well, mate, I kick off every day that way.
I know. Well, we saw that on the show, Dan. You go out for 6 hours.
Mate, that was an absolute stitch-up. I get up early in the morning. I usually hit the beach and I go for a bit of a run and a bit of gym. Being in Sydney in the city, I went for a run, went for a gym. There were some days that I went to the beach. Sandy knew about that. I've got text message exchanges between us both that prove that. I don't know why she was setting me up and lying and pretending that she didn't know where I was when she did the whole thing.
Dan, let's be honest. Let's be honest straight up. You were never into Sandy from the start, were you?
Listen, Sandy and I absolutely had our differences, and they were very much started from the wedding.
Can I hold you up there? Because when we talk about the wedding, you're now seeing one of the wedding guests that was at the wedding, Dan.
Sure.
The woman with the big breasts.
Yeah, so how did you know her, Dan? How did you know her?
Samantha and I were just friends, and we've been friends for a couple of years now.
So did you you invited her to the wedding, right? And then you went out with her when you finished the experiment.
Well, I left the experiment in September last year, and Samantha and I got together for the very first time mid-January this year. So, you tell me, if you're dating someone for 6 weeks, how long should you leave it before you move on to somebody else?
Yeah, no, time is precious. Can I ask, Dan, because the show made you look like a bit of an animal. It made you look a bit cruel towards Sandy, let's be honest, and some of the looks at the table and all of this sort of stuff. Yeah. I'm trying to work out whether there was another side to Sandy, because we saw some text exchange where she was using a certain word, "see you next Tuesday," which I found rather jarring.
I really don't want to speak ill towards Sandy. I think the pressures of the experiment bring out the best and the worst in people. And obviously there's an edit that goes on as well that everyone speaks about. It's a bit odd, though, when I'm saying stuff like, you're being abrasive, you're speaking over the top of me, you're raising your voice, and we're not seeing any of that from Sandy at all whatsoever. So that looks very confusing from the audience's perspective. All I would say is use some common sense and join the dots. you'll come to your own conclusion.
Dan, I don't think you tried though, mate. And I know that they can edit these things up, but if you're out some days, I know it's not every day you're out for 6 hours, but you're out going for a swim, going to the gym. I can understand, but perhaps you were talking to other people. You weren't spending any time with Sandy at all. I feel like you weren't.
Can I just correct the timeline on that? If we have a look at the entire 6 weeks that I was on the show, it was that last week where that was brought up. For the previous weeks beforehand, I was inside the experiment, inside the apartment. I was there with Sandy doing all of the tasks and that kind of thing. It was only when Sandy came to me with a secret arrangement that she's like, I'm not your person, Dan. You're not my person. I've given up too much to be here. Let's just set up a secret arrangement to get through to the end because I've given up too much to be here, that I agreed to that. And at that point in time, I'm like, okay, cool. Well, in non-filming times, I'm going to do what Dan loves doing best, which is go to the beach, which is hang out in the outdoors and that kind of thing. And that's the difference. I think that's more than okay.
You went out with the boys, though. You said that you were going to catch up with someone else or with your kid, and then you're out there. The butt dial. We understand.
The fake butt dial.
The famous butt.
Yes.
You know what, Dan? I think that you were paired, and when I see the experts, I get really upset because they said to Sandy last night, we didn't want it to end like this. They put up a beautiful conservative girl coming from a family who didn't want her to go on the show, and they've set her up with a guy who's been married twice. You're still living your single life. You love ladies. You're a womanizer. It was never going to work.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of responsibility that the experts need to take in this as well. I think it's not fair. It was a deliberate mismatch. I became I came into the experiment for the right reasons until I worked out that we were mismatched for all of the wrong reasons, for drama and for entertainment. And I think that was very, very disappointing.
Because Dan,
not just for me, but particularly for Sandy, who had given up so much and gone against her family and gone against her community and put so much on the line, and I think that was extremely unfair.
But Dan, this is what they do though, Dan. You've seen the show before. This is what I don't understand about MAFS contestants. Don't say that they've made that mistake, because you must have known in the back of your mind that they're going to do this to you.
Mate, I don't watch TV. I don't watch. I actually got approached for the show.
Mate, okay, we're going to speak to Sandy today on the show. You got one more opportunity. You probably haven't spoken to her since the couch, but what do you want to say to Sandy?
I want to say to Sandy, listen, I'm really sorry at the way that I showed up at times inside the experiment. It definitely, I showed up in ways that were out of character for me, in ways that I'm very disappointed in. We went through quite a journey. We had some amazing times, and they're times that I'll treasure forever. I wish you all the best. There's a guy out there that is much, much better suited to you than what I will ever be. And you're going to love that person. That person's going to love you back. And unfortunately, it just wasn't me.
Do you regret going on the show, Dan?
Yeah. Hey, listen, I think given the matching that Sandy and I were, it wasn't the best use.
It's not fair,
time.
Dan, is it? It's not fair. You've been stitched up by the coaches, stitched up by the edit. It's just not fair.
Are you in love at the moment, Dan?
I am in a really, really great place. I have an amazing relationship that I'm developing, and
have you said love yet?
We're just sort of getting along with our lives.
Yeah. All right. Well, mate, we appreciate your time, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
All right, thanks, legend.
See you, Dan. Bye, mate.
That's pretty fun.
Will you work out with him again tomorrow, Tommy?
Oh, I'm second-guessing that.
Ocean's calling.
Yeah, always.
Who's that on the phone? That's the ocean calling.
Can I just... the excuse of I don't watch television... There's a lot of people that do this when they go on reality TV and say, I don't watch television, so I don't know what the show's about.
Give me a break.
When you audition for a show, you've got to do some research, don't you?
Of course he knows what the show's about.
Everybody, MAFS has been an experiment that everyone has spoken about for years and years, about these people ruining their lives.
Do you know the type of character Dan is? I think he's got exactly what he wanted out of this show.
Profile?
A girlfriend with big bosoms.
Oh, no, but he didn't have to go on the show to get that.
Yeah, he did.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
Why?
Because obviously it wasn't working for him outside of the experiment.
Are you saying that girl wouldn't have gone out with him unless he was 100%. On the show?
That's why she was on the show as well. That's the kind of guy he is, unfortunately. He needed to lift his profile to a point that it was actually interesting to go out with him. Without Married at First Sight, Dan would not have those big bosoms.
Do you know what, Tom? This show affects me a lot more than I would like it to.
You let it get to you, don't you, mate?
I really do.
Yeah.
Get
You
angry.
No,
you start yelling, you're deaf.
I had a good conversation with my wife last night. It didn't go down too well when I said to her that I've auditioned for 2024. I said, I need to go on there and shake things up. I reckon they'll give me a really good go. I reckon they'll look after me in the edit. And I reckon I might be the first person that goes on there and finds love.
Yeah, you'd be the next Cam and Jules. For sure. Good luck with it, mate.
You're listening to the Fitzy and Wippa podcast.